But I would also like to caution a bunch of people who are cheering that maybe this guy ends up getting 30 years or 33 years, whatever the max sentence is, that this is all up to one person, the judge. And the judge could look at this and say, you know what? I'm gonna let you walk free. You know what? I'm gonna give you a couple months. You know what? I'm gonna give you a few years. You know what? I'm gonna give you the max sentence. We won't know until next week. So I would caution anybody who's going around cheering this and hoping to just wait, because you might get the outcome you so want, you might not. All I'm looking for is some form of consequence, because you could bring up ADHD and autism and all this shit people have, but that should not be an excuse to allow something like that to happen in any capacity. Because if you go find that video and watch it, he beat the out this lady and deserves some form of a consequence. Certainly you all remember Brendan Deppa, the autistic 17-year-old at the time, who one random day went to school with a Nintendo Switch, got it confiscated, and decided in maybe his right or wrong mind to beat the ever-loving hell out of his teacher. And it led to a bunch of conversation about, should he be punished? How long should the punishment be? Should he be in someone's care unit so that people could understand his autism, so that he could better live with it and control his moments of anger, and blah, 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 blah. What mattered, in my opinion, was the victim coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, I, the victim here, want full punishment, which I believe was 30 years in jail.
Like, to think that they left me for dead, they let him come at me multiple times. They didn't render me any aid, any protection. Like, Flagler schools and Flagler County sheriffs failed me that day. Absolutely failed me that day. I believe it was like up to 30 years, whether it's a combination of whatever, group homes, whatever, jail, he definitely needs to be in jail. He needs to be in jail for what he did to me.
And I would sit here and argue that wasn't going to happen. Maybe a couple years, maybe they'd even give him maybe 2 or 1. But honestly, he was not getting 30 years in prison. But there were some people who didn't want him to face any jail consequences whatsoever. And I'm struggling with y'all on that, because not only did Buddy stomp her out, cursed her out, and I also believe spat at her once people came in and restrained him. But ever since then, Buddy's just been going through it while in jail. On May 27, Deppa received a corrective consultation for harassing another inmate, disruptive conduct, and being in an unauthorized area. A video showed Deppa dancing and playing with another inmate's ID card, which was hanging on a cell door. The report states that they put the inmate's meal tray in and out of the child flap, but that the other inmate's hands were not in the vicinity of the child flap at any time. The inmate had claimed that Deppa slammed the child flap on his hand. Deppa got into trouble again on April 7th when he refused to return a tablet despite being asked repeatedly by the corrections deputy during a lockdown. The report stated that the next violation would result in a disciplinary report. On March 22nd, Deppa deliberately dropped one of his pills on the floor. He then asked for another. He received another, but then picked the one up off the floor and took both. He said that he took both because he was feeling depressed, but said he was not suicidal. On March 12th, Deppa and another inmate used a spray bottle to spray a third inmate. Deppa said he sprayed the inmate because the inmate was spitting at him. Deppa was disciplined with a sentence of 20 days on October 14th. This is all, again, while he operates for some reason inside of this jail cell. On October 14th, Deppa was struck by another inmate after Deppa was in an argument over a tablet. On October 17th, Deppa was struck several times by another inmate during a confrontation. While Deppa did not attempt to strike the other inmate, he was cited for disorderly conduct due to his disorderly behavior and multiple third-party complaints. And on September 9th, Deppa was sentenced to 20 days of disciplinary confinement after a physical altercation with another inmate. When asked what caused the altercation, Deppa said, "We were talking about my case, and he said, I'm going to prison. A large black man attacked small white woman guilty, so I attacked him." So clearly, he's not gonna be out on good behavior. And throughout the day, as we're recording this, he got sentenced to 5 years in jail. And I would argue, perfectly fine. Now, I believe during the whole sentencing of today, his mom came out and gave this really long statement and a bunch of testimony about how she wants her son to come back home, which honestly, what do you expect a mother to do? She was trying even before this sentencing to try to get people to understand his perspective and have a little bit of sympathy for him.
I am so sorry for what my son did. And nobody should ever have to go through that. But at the same time, please consider that my son has had a hard life. And he's gone through so much trauma in his life. He has autism. Please show mercy to him. It's devastating that my heart is breaking. I'm terrified for my child. I feel like if he gets sentenced to prison, it's a death sentence for him. He's scared. And to have your child call and cry and say, I don't want to die, it's awful. And I don't understand why. That in his IEP, it was stated that in the intensive behavior group home that he was living in, if they ever had to remove it as a consequence, they called in the crisis team. And the original IEP called for a token economy for so he could, to motivate him to do his work. He could earn tokens to then go to like a snack closet. This year, he had a new teacher who, it's not Joan. Joan was not his teacher. She's the para. He had a new teacher who, it was her first year teaching. And I don't know if she didn't understand the IEP, if she didn't read it, but she approached the group home and asked the group home to send it in.
Listen, for anybody who watches that video, it's hard for them to get past it, and I can understand they'd be devastated for Joan Nadich, the victim in this attack, and I can imagine you feel devastated for her as well. You wouldn't have wanted this to happen. You're obviously torn between the suffering that she's going through, and then of course the son that you love. It's just odd that he was in, this kind of public schooling to begin with. Do you know why this was the situation? Why he was actually even in a typical school like this? If he had this list of conditions he was coping with?
When he originally was in an autism behavioral hospital back before COVID hit, right before COVID hit, and we went through a process to where we were not able to reunify with him and bring him back home because of the limitations of seeing him in that year due to COVID. And so he was placed in an intensive behavioral group home, and I questioned it at the beginning. I had always homeschooled him because he didn't handle the school environment. I asked the group home, did he have to go to public school? Could he not do school online? And I was assured by them that all of their clients went to public school. So even though he was a level 6 and I never thought he belonged in public school, I didn't have a choice.
And to some people, it might have worked. To me, I'm thinking about the victim saying, hey, I got my ass handed to me. I want full punishment. And she didn't get that, but at least there was some form of a consequence. The Flagler County student caught on video attacking a teacher's assistant was sentenced to 5 years in prison on Tuesday after a full day in court. Brendan Deppa, 18, pleaded no contest in February of 2023 after a video showed him shoving, punching, kicking, I don't believe they added the spitting here, his paraprofessional after she took his video game away. The video shows Joanne Nadich being knocked unconscious. Deppa was a special needs student at Matanzas High School, had his first sentencing hearing in May, but was delayed after the judge announced there were still several witnesses that needed to get through. At the hearing, Nadich took the stand to share that she has PTSD and suffers from anxiety as a result of the attack. Like everything was taken away from me that morning at 10 o'clock that morning. Everything was taken away. My life will never be what it was before, because I believe she also suffered a couple injuries out of this one. Nadich confirmed that no one informed her about Depa's condition or gave her strategies about how to manage and reprimand him to help avoid an attack like that. Nadich confirmed that no one informed her about Depa's condition or gave her strategies about how to manage and reprimand him to help avoid an attack like the one that happened. In February, Depa's mother told WESH2 that Brendan came into her life through foster care. Oh, that's so sad. She said she wants people to know that he loves people. He has not really given an example of loving people. He's not a thug that was just out there and didn't have parents who cared. It was the system that failed him, that he was placed in public school, and that once he was there, the IEP was not followed. People who should have known better than to use his Nintendo Switch, which was his trigger, as a motivator. Madam, I don't think they used the Nintendo Switch as a motivator to piss him off. What I believe occurred was he goes in with the item, which he probably shouldn't even have had, and he's using it probably during class time, which is not what he's supposed to be doing. Even if you have autism, it gets confiscated because teacher claims she didn't have protocol on how to deal with this. So she's just thinking, all right, you brought this in, so let's yoink it from you. And Buddy responds by beating the ever-loving shite out of her. This makes it seem like, oh, well, you all failed him because you took his item away. No. You got to clean that up better for everybody. Now, the $1 million question is obviously going to be, is 5 years enough of a justified sentence? And I would say yes, given all the conversations people want to have about how the school failed, the teachers failed, somebody wanting to blame the victim, because I know one of you is out there and you want to try it and you want to try to make it seem like it's the victim's fault for daring to take something that shouldn't have been in the classroom and then getting her ass handed to you. And I just want you to know you're a fool if you even try that. And we want to talk about how all different types of people with autism exist. You have to acknowledge the fact that a consequence needed to happen and it needed to be done. I know people want to word things like, I don't mean to defend, I don't want to try to defend what he did. Just skip all that and understand. We can all say that there needs to be better systems put in place so that people can actually be taken care of when they have all these things that they have to go through and deal with in their life. That is true. What we also need to agree with is that is not going to be a thinly veiled excuse to do things in certain manners. And I'm sorry, any conversation about schools failing, not enough funding, not enough institutions caring, will not leave out the conversation that needs to be had, which is this man beat the fuck out of somebody over a Nintendo Switch being taken from him. And to prove my point, the mother, after her son got sentenced, gave a statement that lets everybody else in the room know she's clearly missing the overall point. They are punishing that he is black, they are punishing that he is large, and they are punishing his disability. I think he needs help, and I think he needs treatment, but I don't think he needs to be put away in prison where he's going to be taken advantage of or harmed. And I can understand that last part because you're worried that your son is going to be somewhere where people are going to hurt and harm him as he continues to grow into his adult years. Fine, I'm with you on that one. But madam, if I could just virtually put my hand on your shoulder for a moment. They are not punishing him because he's fat and black. They are punishing him because with his autism and apparently the school not being aware to let substitute teachers know that you shouldn't be taking video game consoles from him, he beat the ever-loving fuck out of somebody, spat on her, and cursed her out. And if you don't want to understand that part, listen to the judge bring it up. As he pronounced the sentence, the judge, Perkins said that he had not heard Brendan Depa express remorse at any time. Depa turned to his attorney and motioned to a paper, but the attorney said something to him. The attorney earlier had said that Depa wanted to make a statement to the court, but changed his mind. Perkins cited the violence of the attack and said it was not an isolated incident, citing Depa's violent history, which we've gone over. It captures the senseless extreme violence in a very troubling way. Compounding the senseless physical violence was the screaming of obscenities, spitting on Miss Nadich both before and during the incident. He pursued her down the hallway, pushed her so violently from behind that she flew through the air and was knocked unconscious when she landed in the hallway floor. He then proceeded to kick her, then jump on top of her, striking her in the head and body for more than 15 15 times. What about that screams, yeah, we getting you because you fat and black? And maybe somebody out there might think this is a racial incident because black person, white person. But I'm here to let you know, I'm going to put my hand virtually on your shoulder and say, this is not a fucking racial issue. It is a student versus a teacher, and the student beat the shit, I feel like I've said that at least 15 times in this video alone, out of somebody, and a consequence needed to be met. I understand that a mother is going to want to do her best to defend her child. I ain't got a problem with that. My problem is you ignoring everything else, from the video to the victim to everybody else coming in and saying, hey, we got examples of him doing this before this and after being a nuisance, and you sitting there saying, oh, my poor little fat chubby black boy, I just wanted him in the back of the house picking out my cotton strudels. Oh, no. You are blatantly ignoring key information to try to make it seem like everybody's against your boy. And I'm sorry, but I may be stupid. I'm not slow, nor was I born yesterday. Regardless of what anybody says that try to paint it out as this old victim's mentality of having to deal with autism, it cannot be ignored that he beat the fuck out of somebody. And I believe 5 years is enough of a justification. I know 30 years was on the table, but honestly, that really wasn't going to stick for anybody and was probably going to get appealed. And who knows, maybe this will even be appealed. But in the meantime, he's sitting behind a cell and having to deal with the consequences of his own actions. I hope the victim in this, I believe her name is Naditch, feels some semblance of peace knowing that she got justice, even though it wasn't the justice she fully wanted. She got some nonetheless. But let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. I will see you all in the next one. Mwah. Goodbye.